I'm calling my elders and I'm like, this guy is trying to get into the house. I have a feeling a fight is about to break out. I don't want to do this. And my elders are like, if you retaliate to him in any way, you're going to be the one that's in trouble. I would have elders literally just looking at me like I'm spiritually immature just because I'm into music, just because I like playing the piano and singing, And I remember having an elder tell me, why don't you just save that for the new system, brother? Just save it for the new system. You'll be able to play the piano as much as you want, as many pianos as you want, just save it for the new system. I'm like, well, I'm feeling it now, so I'm gonna put it out on this song.
You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
Hey, this is Lady C.
And this is JT.
And in the upcoming episode, we're going to be talking to a couple who recently woke up from the watchtower. And it's really interesting because after all they had been through as a couple, the brothers were trying to prevent them from getting married. So without further ado, we're going to bring on Everett and Shardinea.
Hey, guys.
How y'all doing?
Hi. Good. We're good.
Thank you so much for being on the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
And we appreciate you guys reaching out to us to tell your story. And we're going to really have a pretty good time talking about your story because I found it to be so interesting because you had so many different twists and turns that you were going through. But I would like to start off just by, finding out about how each of you became Jehovah's Witnesses. If you want to kind of start off talking about that.
So I'll start. I'm fourth generation Jehovah's Witness. I have been all my life. I've been a Jehovah's Witness. I was born in. I don't know anything else. Didn't know anything else at the time. And
Me, I actually have family on my mom's side that are witnesses, and I pretty much spent most of my teenage and adult-ish years not being a witness, but I ended up deciding after feeling like I didn't really have any direction to be a witness, because when you don't have direction and your family are witnesses, that's the direction that you're meant to go in. So that's how I became a witness.
So we met at a talent show. We used to go to his brother's house all the time. Every weekend he had people over for karaoke, and I used to bring my keyboard over there and sing, and we would all sing. And one day she was at this talent show, and that's where we met at.
I took the time to make fun of him, honestly. When we first met, I told him that he looked like a hobo with the coat he was wearing. And that's about all the interaction we had that night, besides just me trying to talk to him, but he was kind of too busy in his own world. So didn't really do much talking that night.
How did y'all guys get back in touch though?
I had his number and I got tired of waiting. So I actually kind of called and just kind of played it off with hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. So that's kind of how it just went from there. And we ended up just constantly keeping in touch after that.
We started talking regularly, and then we ended up did we break it off for a while because she wanted to be single, pursue the single life.
We were still friends, but I was being single because that's what I was supposed to be doing. I was being taught to be the single pioneer sister. I was on a convention program at one point. I was doing all of that, what I was supposed to be doing. So I'm supposed to be single, but eventually spending so much time around him, I ended up I really don't want to be single. But that's how that kind of just happened. And it was always easy before to keep with the whole, wanting to be single, because I never found any witness at all to be particularly interesting. I saw that they all wanted to be elders and circuit overseers and ministerial servants, and I didn't care about any of that at all. So he seemed like, when I met him, he seemed like someone who's more than just, walking around thinking spiritual stuff all the time, 24/7, nothing else at all. And I gravitated towards that.
The biggest challenges I faced as a Jehovah's Witness was dealing with depression. Being in the organization, while they have articles and stuff that talk about how helpful they can be for depression and how, accommodating they can be, a lot of people don't actually listen to any of those articles. you know, or they're really not that helpful, or by the time it comes down to it, when you're thinking an elder is going to use something in an article or something, it just doesn't happen, you know, and people are actually looking down on you for being depressed, even though they say that they're not. So that was one of the biggest challenges I had.
It was the same for me. I've dealt with major depression, PTSD, anxiety disorder pretty much my whole life, even before becoming a witness, which is one of the part of the whole looking for some place to go to get help. I thought, you know, being a witness would be that. And it really didn't, because like he said, they pretty much, they don't want you to be depressed, because once you start studying that Bible teach book, this is your instant source of happiness. Now you have to think about the new world and how you're going to be free from depression then, how you're going to be perfectly happy then. But until then, you're going to be happy that we're here, and it's no type of actual help for depression. So just it just gets worse. It doesn't get better with depression when you come in, or if you're there and dealing with it.
Do you think a lot of it has to do with the way the organization is structured? In other words, we're taught that we're supposed to be the happiest people on the earth.
Yeah.
And as we all know, you can't attain that happiness. And if you can't attain it, you're going to be depressed. You think that often impacts people as well?
Yeah, I mean, you have it's like you have a reputation to keep up. You know, if you're not happy, then you must be doing something wrong. You know, I had elders telling me that if I was depressed, you must have done something wrong. You know, is there something you need to tell us? You know, did you do something wrong? It's like, I know, I'm just depressed. I'm depressed. You know, and the elders were very just not helpful. They said, oh, you're not reading your Bible enough. You're not praying enough. It didn't matter if you were doing all these things. If you weren't showing that you were happy, then you didn't have the right kind of relationship with Jehovah. You weren't spiritually strong enough.
It always comes down to, for them, that if you're depressed, then we're going to use that not to help you, but use that as a way to get what we need out of you, which is go out and service. You're depressed, go out and service, you'll feel
Oh,
better. You're
man.
depressed, go, do a part on the stage, you'll feel better. Anything depression wise for them is, we're going to use this to our benefit, but we're not actually going to help you.
Yeah. And that actually, I will say this, you know, when the elders would tell me, go out and service, you're depressed, go out and service, I would go out more. And the more I went out and service, yeah, I don't want to say I was less depressed, but I was just more distracted from my depression. And so it didn't hit me until I got home after being out in service that I'm actually still depressed, and this didn't help me at all. But as long as I was out there, I wasn't thinking about it.
I know that when I was an elder, that was one of the things that we saw. We saw friends who were depressed, who were struggling. And the solution that we were given is exactly what you've described. So, what about in the congregation? Did you have any privileges when you were in the congregations that you served in?
So at the congregation that I went to, I had responsibilities. I didn't have any labels or names. I did the literature counter. I took the friends out in field service. At one point I took them out like every day, because I was still looking for a job and everybody else was working. And so I was just out taking the friends out in field service. And I actually did enjoy that. But I did a lot of I gave the number 3 talks. I was on the RBC, which was actually one of my favorite things to do in this organization, was help build halls, get on those quick build sites. We had an online thing that came on through the RBC that helped us to, anytime a Kingdom Hall project came up, it would just pop up on our profile and we could just go to that project. And I spent a lot of time doing that kind of stuff. And that was where I was. But I had elders basically tell me, there was a scripture about, somebody who wants to reach out for service, and that's an honorable thing, but that person has to be sound in mind. And one of my elders told me, because you deal with depression, can you really consider yourself, sound in mind? And because of that, I had that label on me that basically I wasn't going to go any further than where I was, which was just a publisher with most of the responsibilities that a ministerial servant has. And they weren't going to let me go any further than that because of my depression. And so that limited my spiritual growth, which was also more depressing.
Oh yeah, you get the elders who do the psychoanalysis stuff with no qualifications all the time.
Yep. And they would tell me, I would ask them, I'm like, brother, I'm doing all of this stuff, and they said that we had an article that came out like, are you not being considered as a ministerial servant? Well, Jehovah is probably showing you something that you need to work on. And the reason why you're not a ministerial servant is because Jehovah sees something that is probably a problem. And so you're the problem and you need to fix that. And people will come off the streets, you know, and they're ministerial servant in less than a year. And I'm just like, man, this is crazy. You know, I'm literally trying my hardest to be useful in this organization, because the result is, if you're a certain age and you're not a ministerial servant, you're going to get treated a certain way. And it doesn't matter what the circumstances are. You're going to be considered spiritually immature. They're going to say you're not relying on Jehovah enough. It doesn't matter that you read your Bible every day, that you're keeping up on the literature, that you're out in field service, that you got studies, that you're helping the older friends and being available for them. If you don't have that label, that's it. You're not going to get that far.
Yes, this is a status-driven organization. That's why they have so many various titles and boxes that they can put you in, and that's how you will be judged or how you be treated based on which box you end up finding yourself in. That's a great point. That's a great point.
Yeah, it is. And it sounds like they put a stigma on you, Everett.
Yeah.
Would you say that there were anything in your family that may have further attributed to that stigma?
So the congregation that I went to after the one that I left, because that congregation that I was in had gotten dissolved, and I ended up going to a new congregation. Now, they had sent me a recommendation letter, which was actually a good letter, because I get to this congregation and they're like, we're looking forward to, you know, using you and all of this. This congregation that I went to knew me when I was a kid, and when I was 8 to like 13, and I was a bit of a misfit. And so despite the recommendation letter that I had got, they basically said, we're not going to use you. And one of the reasons being was because of my mother. My mother had been disfellowshipped like 3 times, I think twice from that congregation. And it's almost as if they treated me like, you're her son, and so we're going to assume that you're getting into the same activities that she is. And so it was an uphill battle at that congregation. As soon as I got there, they sat me down. They didn't let me do anything for a year at all. I couldn't take the friends out in service. I couldn't even hold the microphones. It was just a complete reset. And after a year, they started letting me do certain things, but it was just like real short leash.
Oh yeah, this is the aspect of the organization that people don't understand. The elders in your local congregation, they will literally dictate your life. And that's why you heard people say, well, we never heard of that. We never did, because, you know, in the organization, you fall under various rules and laws, and depending on where you are. And so this whole concept of this unity, we're the same around the world, that's one of the biggest lies that the organization tells. One of the biggest lies the organization tells.
That's true. And it's almost like, you know, their personalities are shining through more than the actual rules that the Watchtower will measure you by. Because if you're getting all the field service time and you're doing everything, you would think that they would use you to do what the Watchtower says that they need you for, right?
Yeah.
So what other types of issues did you find yourself in this congregation as time went on?
So as time went on, once I recognized that I wasn't really going to make any progress, you know, no matter what I did, and I did a lot at that congregation. You know, I was averaging like, I think 24 hours field service time. I had 2 and 3 studies on average, and they still wouldn't let me do anything. And so at one point, I said, you know what, I want to get married. You know, I can see I'm not going to do anything here. I know they're pushing singleness and all of this, but I'm not going to get anywhere in this congregation. So let me just kind of continue moving forward with my life. And I decided I wanted to get married. I told my elders what my plans and stuff were, and they were like, absolutely not. We think because you deal with depression that you're not going to be a suitable husband. And they shared scriptures with me on that. And we even had Watchtower articles that came out later on that talked about being a eunuch. And one of my elders told me, he's like, yeah, I think you're probably going to you're going to be a eunuch. You know, that's how your circumstances are looking. That might be where Jehovah's leading you.
What?
That's crazy, man.
A eunuch.
That's crazy.
They really, you know what, it really seems to me like they were really zeroing in on you, and it seems more like harassment than anything else.
Yeah.
I'm telling you.
Yeah. Well, you know, it really goes beyond just harassment, because these men more than likely, let me ask you this. When you talk to them, did they sound like they were sincere?
I would say they were sincere, but I mean, they were irritated a lot talking with me. Like they just didn't want to deal with me.
Yeah. And see, that's the problem. These individuals actually think that they're giving good advice. And the reason why, because see, notice what you said they were using. They was using the publications. See, in the world of Jehovah's Witnesses, if you're using the publications, then what I'm telling you is good, is right. And when you have people, as we see in this organization, you put people who are window washers, they got little cleaning businesses, and then they come to the Kingdom Hall and they head man in charge. That is very ego driven.
Yeah.
And when you can take someone's life and dictate to them, and when you think about it, and people who watch this video are gonna know exactly what we're talking about. When you're talking to these elders in what congregation you're in, they speak with total authority.
Yeah.
They don't stumble, they don't stutter. They tell
Yeah.
you exactly what they believe. This is what you need to have.
Yeah.
And man, they be giving some of the craziest advice that you can imagine.
It is.
And
You
so
know,
and so basically you got a fool in charge, man. You got a
Yeah.
fool in charge.
I'm thinking back on it. The brother that told me that I was going to be a eunuch, he actually was one of the only brothers that I thought was actually helpful. He was sincere. There were some brothers that actually did want to help, but it was like this brother sincerely was telling me you're going to be single for the rest of your life because you have these issues.
Sincerely wrong.
Say it again.
I said
Oh my
sincerely
God.
wrong. Yeah, I mean, and that's and I'm gonna be honest with you, man. I know she get on me all the time, but I talk too much. But man, I'm just telling you, that is what when I look back, man, that is what literally scares me the most.
Yeah.
I was in a position where I could give people advice and they would do it.
Oh yeah.
When you put a clown in a position and they can do this kind of stuff,
Yeah.
and that's why we hear stories just like yours. I mean, no reasonableness, no soundness of mind. All they know is this is what the book says on page 2. This
Yeah.
what must be. And so this is what makes the Jehovah's Witness religion so dangerous. You have all of these wannabes driving the ship.
Yeah.
And it's taking a lot of people's lives into shipwreck, man. A lot of people's lives end up shipwrecked because of information that they got from these guys. It's sad.
But you know something, I'm gonna say this. The one thing that I did not hear them say was talk to a therapist, get some help. And for these brothers to just give you that type of advice, just going out and field service is not gonna help someone with depression.
No.
You know?
And I had a therapist, and initially they were kind of skeptical about it. I had a therapist, I was taking medication and I had help, but it was almost as if they would tell me, because sometimes my therapist would highlight, once a therapist gets into your life and they figure out what's going on, they're like, oh, I think the organization is your problem. Almost any therapist that I've been to has said that. And I know that's been on other videos, but my therapist said that. And I remember telling my brothers that, and I'm like, well, you don't need to be with that therapist then, but that was the problem that I was running into.
Yes, that is the number one reason why Jehovah's Witnesses have historically been negative toward psychoanalysis types of situations, going to professionals, going to therapists, because they knew that they would tell people one of your problems that you need to look at is what you're involved in the organization. And I mean, and for years, Jehovah's Witnesses were simply told that is not the direction you want to go in. You want to go in a quote unquote spiritual direction. And it's only been, and for those who's been around for a while, we know this is, in terms of this organization, this is really a new thing. And of course, the witness will say, well, nobody really understood it back then. Well, you said you was God's people. You should be claiming the same thing over here other churches did. I love when witnesses start claiming that we did the same thing. Why?
Yeah.
You always told us you were different.
Yeah.
So at no point should you ever invoke, I steal like Larry steals. You should never do that.
Yeah.
Right.
So the organization has historically discouraged. I remember the articles coming out, and guys at Bethel who worked in the writing department would say that they would be some of the highest responded articles. People writing in, thank you, brother. I'm glad you said I won't go crazy this time. Because historically they've told people you just spiritually weak. And so now with we see that they've lightened up, but it's just sad that they put this burden that you are a failure, you're spiritually weak, you don't love God, you need to jump higher, run faster, and that's the reason why you got the problem. When in fact you just need to go to somebody's office and sit there and share with them some of the things you're dealing with in your life, and they can give you some directions to go in. That's all you really needed. Yet we had these guys who were doing this, and this is what makes elders so dangerous in this organization: unqualified men.
Yeah, and even when you went to a therapist, you would run into issues where What you got? You want to tell yours, the issues you run into?
Oh, well, in the organization, the issue I run into is where you can't be fully honest about what it is you need help with. Because you can't, it's almost like saying I'm unhappy is telling on the organization. Well, if I tell the therapist I'm unhappy, that means it's the organization. And now you're going to make them look bad. So now I got to just be as vague as possible with this therapy session so I can get help. But I didn't really get help because I couldn't actually say anything.
Yeah. And you're literally telling your therapist you're holding back from your therapist because in your mind, you're like, I'm the one that has all the answers. So these people can't really help me. And then brothers would tell me that you're going, oh, I see you're going to get that worldly wisdom, and so I would go to a therapist with the impression, with the idea of not listening to them if they told me something against the organization.
Yeah, that's powerful. You cannot tell them what you're dealing with. Because if you just say, I give you an example. My wife and I, we know this brother. When it was time to go out and field service, he would get so nervous that it would literally upset his stomach.
Oh yeah,
and it would physically impact him. Okay, I'll put it that way. And he couldn't go to no therapist and say, "When I get to go out and field service, my nerves and my stomach just get so bad just thinking of knocking on folks' doors." He couldn't tell her that. He couldn't tell her that. And so the organization, man, they just jack up people's lives too much, man.
It is. And you know what? It's like what Shardinea was saying. She said it's like you got to tell on the organization. So like a lot of people who go to therapy sessions may go for one thing. But what happens is as they begin to unfold in your conversation, as your conversation begins to unfold, it begins to butt up to some other issues.
Yeah.
So even though you show up thinking I'm only going to talk about this issue right here, that's not what ends up coming out.
Yep.
Yeah. So let me ask you guys this. How did you end up waking up? What was the major crack in your foundation for waking up?
For me, it was a few years into our marriage, where he had indefinitely decided, I can't take the anxiety no more. I can't take it. I've been reading, I've been studying. You don't want to hear it, but I'm done going back. And at that point, now I'm upset, but not really, because I'm more so upset because I'm supposed to be upset. And at the same time, I'm in here and I'm unhappy too. So now he's happy out, I'm unhappy in. They're telling me he's going to be unhappy and come back. But years later, he's still not unhappy. He's getting happier and I'm getting even more sadder. And I'm looking at this. I'm at the hall. I'm standing here looking at everybody like this is not okay. I'm not okay. This isn't where I want to be. Nobody here even acknowledges my existence anymore. So it was hard to wake up, but easier once I started just seeing him happy and I'm not.
So what started me waking up was actually getting my own place. And this was pretty big. I had a brother, a ministerial servant, tell me that he had a place for me. I was trying to start my own painting business and all of that. And I was actually trying to show my elders that, hey, look, I can be, you guys were treating me like a kid, but look, I'm being an adult. I got my own place, my own car. And I thought that if I did all of this stuff, that they would actually approve of me getting married. I'm literally trying to get their approval so that I can get married and show them that I'm able to handle all of this stuff. And so I get my own place. And this brother turned out to be like a slumlord, worse than some of the slumlords that aren't in the organization. And that's what started me waking up.
So you mentioned that you was going to stay with a ministerial servant who actually would turn out to be more like a slumlord, which is kind of ironic because as Jehovah's Witnesses, we're supposed to represent Jehovah's name in the community. But what did you run into when you end up living with the arrangement that this brother had for you?
Man, when I got into this place, now what you just said is very important because I knew that. I knew as Jehovah's Witnesses, we're clean people. We have a reputation to uphold. And so I literally went in under the impression that he knows that too as a ministerial servant, because I looked at him as being, pretty much better than I was because he made it to ministerial servant and I didn't. So I didn't expect this. I get to this place and there's termites. There's, everything's overgrown at the house. He tells me you can paint in this garage, and I'm like, all right, cool. It took me like a week or two to get all this stuff from in front of the garage so that I could paint. I open up the garage and I see junk like up to my knees, You know, it is just terrible. Okay. And it's still not clicking in. It's like, you know what? This brother is probably overwhelmed with all his responsibilities as a ministerial servant, you know, and maybe he's bringing me here to help him out. You know, maybe Jehovah is giving me the situation, and I can prove my maturity by working with this situation, being humble. And I said, I'm going to work this out. This is my first place. I'm excited, you know, so I'm really not even seeing a lot of this stuff. Okay. We get to the basement of the house, or I get to the basement because it was just me initially. And, oh, there was the ceiling had a crack in it. There was a roof leak later on because of that. Those are the termites. I found termite nests. I didn't know what those looked like. In the basement, there was like dirt formations, almost like cave formations coming down out of the ceiling. And I'm like, this is something from National Geographic, but I'm gonna work with this, and because Jehovah's giving me this opportunity, and I don't want to be ungrateful for this opportunity. You know, we ran into black widow spiders, brown recluse spiders. I didn't run into any roaches, and I'm going to assume it's because they were killed by the black widow spiders and the brown recluse spiders.
Yeah, I know.
And it was just, the basement was full of washers and dryers. Now, he said he would get all of this stuff out, but he never did. And still in the back of my head, I'm like, you know what? Jehovah's people are clean people, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to clean this entire house up. You know, and I took before and after pictures, and I started my project, you know, and that was a very long project. He wouldn't let me I tried to rent a dumpster out and take it off the rent. And he said, nope. He said, you got to do that on your own. The only thing that he took off the rent was the faucet in the kitchen that was gone when I got there. After that, everything else that sounds like something you can handle on your own. And it was a really rough situation because we were in a band, and we did weddings and receptions, and we brought all of the stuff over my house because I had my own place, and we were in the middle of Detroit and nowhere on a block with like 4 houses on it, so we could do our band practice, you know, and not bother anybody. And one day I wake up in the morning and there's like a huge puddle of water on the floor next to all our equipment. And I'm calling this brother up. I'm like, bro, this equipment is probably worth more than this house. We need to do something about this. Are you going to fix your roof? And he said, you know what, that sounds like that's something you can handle. You know, I got some row roof in my shop, man. Why don't you come and get it and try and get up there and fix that? Which I actually did try to do until I took a couple wrong steps, and I'm like, I'm going to fall through this roof, so I'm going to just pay somebody to do this. And that's when the problem started. Eventually I got tired of it, and I ended up informing my elders at one point because I wanted them. I thought that, like you said, like Jehovah's people are clean people. So I assumed that if I had shown this to my elders, that they would recognize, okay, this brother is a ministerial servant. He has an example to set. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. We're going to straighten this out. And so I called for a meeting between my elders and this ministerial servant so that we can just iron the situation out and we can work it out. And I really genuinely thought that my elders were going to work with me on this situation. That didn't happen at all. What ended up happening, in fact, was they actually sided with him. I don't know what he told them about me, but it took them 2 weeks to respond to me in the first place. I had all of those pictures I had in a portfolio that I was going to like show them, and they said they didn't want to see it. They told me that I should probably just leave that house, you know, and just go back and live with my mom, you know, because there's nothing that really can be done unless the brother's being fraudulent, you know. And they showed me somewhere in the OD book that if this brother's being fraudulent, then we can do something. And so I continue reading on the same chapter in the OD book, and it actually goes on to talk about if a brother is taking advantage of another brother, that you can do something about it. And I showed my elders that. And I said, look, this brother is taking advantage of us. By that time I had a roommate, and we were both trying to clean the house up. And it was just one project after another. The elders did nothing. They literally chose to do nothing with that situation. And it was upsetting because I'm spending money trying to fix this house. And I got tired of it. At one point I said, you know what? I'm going to do all the repairs that I need to do. And I did. And instead of paying him rent, I gave him receipts. And I think I gave him $20 that month because of all of the stuff that I spent on his house. And at that point, he tried to put me out. He wrote me a handwritten eviction letter that said, if you're not out by like January 1st, you're going to have to pay me $100 every day until you leave. Now, keep in mind, this is my first place, so I didn't know if that was legal or not. If he could do that, it sounded terribly illegal, but I wasn't sure. And so I called like the 36th district court, and they were like, yeah, that's not how this works. They told me that I could actually seize that house from him if I wanted to. I can get the police involved if I needed to. And it was just, I told my elders that. I told them, hey, here's what's happening with this situation. I can take this house because he's not handling it and you're not handling it. And my elders told me, they shared that scripture with me about taking your brother to court. And they say it would be a defeat for you, to take your brother to court. What would this make the organization look like if you took your brother to court? And so now I'm in a rock and a hard place because I don't want the organization to look bad, but I also want to actually, this is my spot. This is my way to actually show my brothers that I'm, worth their time. And they refused to work with me. They wanted me to leave. And moving back with my mother was not an option at the time. We had a terrible relationship. So I preferred to stay where I was at. And I tried to stay there.
Yeah, that is just too common. We had a circuit overseer. He shared with us a scripture that we could always use, basically as a free get out of jail card. And the Bible makes the point, let yourself be wrong. Yeah. So a situation like that, man, we would a sharp body of elders, two elders on the shepherding call. They would tell you, well, brother, and it's kind of cool the way you do it. You agree with everything the person said, brother. Everything you said is true, brother. Everything you said is absolutely right. The brother shouldn't be doing this. And this is wrong. And then when you finish, you say, but now notice what the Bible says. Sometimes, brother, we got to let ourselves be wrong. And so now here's your chance. And so they throw the monkey back on you. And you're like, well, y'all see this guy ain't clean this house up? And then y'all gonna throw the monkey on me. And so this is the type of stuff this organization does. It trains its men who serve as elders how to use scriptures to literally flip the script back to you. Yeah. I mean, they put the monkey back on you. And so that's this organization is amazing. As we often say, but they ain't got no shame, man. They ain't got no shame in the game.
Not Everett. Now, so looking at that house, I would have been like, no, this is probably a guy thing, right?
Yeah.
Because look at that house. I don't think I could have moved it.
It looks amazing to me now.
I got my own place, man. I got my own place.
It might as well been shining and glistening and stuff, man. I didn't see any of that stuff.
Oh my God. So my thing is, okay, so how old were you?
I was 23, I think I was.
Yeah, man, you're good to go.
I went over there one time. He invited me over with his friend and his roommate at the time, and we went over there and we watched the movie, and I didn't go to the bathroom. I didn't go in the kitchen. I didn't go anywhere. My spot was that one part of the couch the whole time, and I said nothing. I didn't comment on where, and while the movie was over, it was like, all right, so this is nice. You're gonna take me home now, and I never went back there ever again.
I'm surprised you were able to pull off this relationship, man.
I already on the outside. I was like, I'm gonna die on this block tonight. I never.
Oh man.
Oh my God.
I never expected to move in that house ever.
I know.
Oh my God. But see, let me say this. That's the Jehovah Witness thing. Yeah. That's what this is all about. Because you felt confined. You felt like this was your only option or whatever. Yeah. And you're trying to show the brothers, I want to go along to get along. I want to get this position. I want to move up in the organization and stuff like that. And so you're not looking that you could have had other options to do something different because you're so busy with tunnel vision, looking at this situation with his brothers in the congregation.
Yeah. And what ended up happening with that was after this handwritten eviction notice, I go to the elders because now I'm like, okay, now something's really wrong. I got 36th district court on my side. I'm showing them like this is bad, right? And I stayed there for a few more days. I think we stayed there up until almost the 30 days, and I didn't give him any money, of course. But at one point, he came, blocked me in the driveway. And I was supposed to be getting ready to go to the meeting. He blocked me in the driveway. He has like his brother with him or somebody that is not a witness. And he's like, look, I just sold this house to this guy. And so now you got to deal with him. This guy is yelling out out in the front lawn. If you don't get all your stuff out by the end of the day, everything that you own is mine. You have 24 hours to leave this place. And so I don't know what to do now. He's trying to get in the house. He didn't have a key to all the locks. None of us did, but he's trying to get into the house, and I'm calling the police now. And I'm like, this guy's trying to get into the house. I don't know what's about to happen here. And I remember somebody telling me, look, if he gets into that house, that's illegal. You can treat him like an intruder. So now I've got a shovel in my hand, and I'm like, how did I get here? You know, I'm calling my elders, and I'm like, this guy is trying to get into the house. I have a feeling a fight is about to break out. I don't want to do this. And my elders are like, if you retaliate to him in any way, you're going to be the one that's in trouble. And I'm thinking like you guys had so many opportunities to at least try and help with this situation, and you refused. You know, it was just one bad situation after another. Eventually they left because they couldn't get in the house. And then I left and went to the meeting, the rest of the meeting. And I told them what was going on. They're like, yeah, you need to leave. Just go back and move with your mom. I'm like, you're not going to do anything about this. And they're like, nope. And they didn't. And after that, rumors started spreading around the congregation that I was speaking against the elders. Now, I hadn't told anybody what was going on, except the people that had got to the house, that saw what was going on. And it was self-explanatory at that point. So the only people I really talked to was the elders. Now, keep in mind, my wife here was through the entire process of all of this. Like, she literally was the whole process. She was hearing what was happening. And I think that was probably an interesting point for her to see all that was happening there. But I remember telling the brothers, look, you know, I have to, now I'm leaving. Now I'm homeless. You know, then I end up going into a hotel after that. I stayed in a hotel that I could barely afford. And I remember asking for a shepherding call. You know, I asked the brothers, I'm like, look, I'm really down on right now on how I'm feeling. And we had a circuit overseer visit, and my intention was to tell him what was going on because my brothers weren't listening. And so my elders, they said, okay, we'll set up the shepherding call. You know, it'll be, you know, circuit overseer's got a lot that he has to do. So when he finishes up, he'll come back around. I waited all day at this hotel, you know, from 7, 8 in the morning to 9 at night. They never showed up. And I remember getting so depressed. Like, does God really care about me? Does he enjoy me just suffering, you know, one bad situation to the next? You know, I really thought that, you know, God's spirit was going to, you know, just kind of bring something out of the situation and where it was going to be obvious of what was wrong. And I called one of my elders at night, and I said, hey, are you guys still coming? And he was like, oh, brother, I forgot, man. I'm sorry, man. You know, we forgot. And that was the last time I was going to see the circuit overseer. And it was just, I didn't know what to do at that point. I was so depressed, you know, and my wife or fiance at the time, or we weren't engaged, were we? We were just dating. She was just, that entire process, she saw that. And I didn't know what to do. You know, I knew I was still trying to get my own place. I knew we were still trying to get married at some point, but at that point I was pretty messed up.
Yeah, elders pick and choose. They decide themselves who they want to help, who they want to work with. And if you, unfortunately, if you do not measure up to what they deem as being worthy, they won't. Personally, this is what I saw a lot growing up as a kid. In fact, my family was part of that group. If you weren't part of the certain level, when you needed help, you didn't get it. So yeah, it's what you're sharing is a lot of people are gonna hear this video and they're gonna realize, yep, that was my family. We were the outcasts in the congregation, and it's very sad, very sad.
Yeah, we had that night that they didn't show up for that shepherding call was actually the first night that I had looked up some apostate material. Like, I wasn't planning on it, but my Watchtower library is my go-to for everything. And this time I looked up, does God really care about us? But instead of putting it in Watchtower library, I Googled it and looked at all the information that came up about that. And eventually I came across one of Lloyd Evans' videos, and it scared me half to death because he mentioned that he was an atheist, and I'm like, oh my God, it's an atheist. And I hurried up and turned everything off, and I didn't watch any more for years. But that was the start of me waking up out of this organization. Then I started looking online again, and I found Exjw, Critical Thinkers, your guys' channel. You guys seem like a couple that I actually had known in the congregation, you know, and you guys were so down to earth. And I'm like, man, I feel like I know you guys. And it was just apostates were considered to be angry all the time, bitter, you know, and just completely irrational. And then here you guys come on the channel speaking rationally and making sense and stuff. And like, it wasn't until years later when I actually started looking more into your videos that you know, because I honestly, when I first saw your videos, I was like, they lying, you know, and I disregarded you guys. And then later on, when you guys started bringing up videos that had like Watchtower quotes and stuff in it, and then articles, and then I said, you know, let me look these articles up. And I would look them up, and I'm like, oh my God, this is like actually happening. You know, the 1975 thing, the 1914 doctrine, the 1975 video was the biggest video for me, because it was just all of this information that you guys brought up. And these are articles that are still on the Watchtower library online right now. And so they're not even trying to hide this, you know, but finding out that people had quit their jobs before they could retire. People had dropped out of school. It was just, I remember you guys interviewed somebody, Joy Grant, and she was talking about how her dad had quit her job, you know, before he could retire, and all the stuff that he lost. And I'm like, we literally were just ruining people's lives like this over a false prophecy. And there's a scripture in the Bible, I might get this wrong, I think it's Deuteronomy maybe 19:20 or something, that talks about how to find out if a prophet is false. And it was really simple. It was, the prophecy didn't come true. That prophet is false. Don't fear him. And it started changing my view of this organization.
Oh, and you know, it's interesting. It's interesting that you're saying what you're saying, because the average person that's being treated bad in this religion, they're not necessarily going out and Googling, does God really care about us, or stuff like that. And instead, they just go back. They may be walkaway believers. They may continue just going on the path that they're on.
Yeah.
And they may not realize for like another 10 years that this is not the truth.
Yeah, that I feel bad for people that spend so much time, you know, in this organization, 50 years, recognize that there is something wrong. And then because they've invested so much into it, you know, they can't leave, you know. But when I started finding that out, you know, because after I had gotten this fellowship, maybe we could talk about what led up to that. I did a lot of research years later, but it took me years to do that. You know, it took me 3 or 4 years before I actually started really doing research on this organization and finding out what it was doing to people, because I just couldn't fathom that God was so insincere and that he just didn't care, and he was just so unavailable as those elders were for me. I'm like, God can't be this terrible, you know. And that's actually what led me to watching your channel and things like that, because it's like it can't be that bad.
Well, you know, I also understand that you all are artists, and you've used your music as a way of therapy.
Yeah.
Do you want to share a little bit about your music and your therapy?
Yep. Okay. So I'm a musician, and music has always been a form of therapy for me. In the organization, we are very limited on what we can do musically, because the moment you start doing something, they're coming down on you, like, you need to watch that. You know, this is, you know, Satan's organization. He owns the music industry. You know, you shouldn't be doing that. And now we were in a band. We did receptions, weddings. We did a lot of that stuff, and I also did things on my own. When I was doing that, I would have elders literally just looking at me like I'm spiritually immature, just because I'm into music, just because I like playing the piano and singing, you know. And I remember having an elder tell me, why don't you just save that for the new system, brother? You know, just save it for the new system. You know, you'll be able to play the piano as much as you want, as many pianos as you want, you know, just save it for the new system. I'm like, well, I'm feeling it now, so I'm gonna put it out on this song, you know. And that's what I do. I express myself through music. And one of the things that I started doing when I started waking up was like, you know what, maybe I should write about this. Maybe I should make a song or an album about this experience, you know. And initially I didn't think it was going to work out, but, you know, I stuck with it. And I made an album about this whole experience as Jehovah's Witness, my judicial committee, the situation with my mother, my uncle. You know, it was just, I put it all out, and it was extremely just fulfilling to just put that out, just take that out of me and put it, you know, and put it out somewhere where people can hear it and vibe with it. And hopefully they feel relieved knowing that somebody went through what they went through. You know, that's what my music has done for me.
That's amazing. They never told Larry Graham or Prince to come off the stage. Don't make your music.
Yeah. Now I wanted to mention that, you know, there was some witnesses that they were just okay with being in the music industry, but it's like some others they gave a lot of issues to. I know a brother right now, he plays violin, amazing violin player. They don't seem to give him any issues.
George
you know,
Benson, all those guys, man.
yeah. But I wanted to sing or rap or something. Or rap, they don't like rap at all, you know. And so I decided to start rapping, you know, just to give it a shot, you know. And I watched what Fifth did, and I was inspired by him. And I said, you know, I want to give this a shot. I make my own album, and I went ahead and I told my experience. And my goodness, it's an amazing feeling to be able to put that out and be a part of this community now. That now I can help people that went through what I went through.
Yeah, it's part of the healing. It's part of the healing process. No question about it.
Can you tell us how we can get your CD?
Yes. Okay. So the album is called "Let Me Speak Now." And it's on all streaming platforms. You can find it on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify. It's on all of that. I also have a website called They Don't Wanna Listen. Wanna is WANNA. They Don't Wanna Listen. I've got merchandise. I got shirts. I got coffee mugs. I got hats. And I'm just trying to promote my my brand. But I've also got more music coming out next month. But yeah, the album is "Let Me Speak Now." It talks about my entire experience and how I woke up, and some of the things that I had ran into while I was waking up.
Okay, so we'll also include that in the description here so that anybody that wants to hear about your experience and how you woke up, and that'd be excellent.
Yeah.
He put everything into that. That's his whole heart and soul and anxiety and pain and everything in there. And you could definitely feel it when you listen to it.
Yeah, it wasn't easy making that album. I suggest to listen to the audio skits, because those are I did redo my my judicial committee, you know, and some of the audio.
Goodness.
I did. Yeah, I did that. It was tough, you know, trying to do that, but I wanted people to hear, you know, exactly what people have to deal with in this organization, you know, because a lot of people are just uninformed.
I can see where that would be therapeutic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's very important that you at least be able to talk about what happened and what you went through. I think that's probably the most important thing anybody can do who leaves the organization. Be sure to tell somebody what you went through.
Absolutely. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience about your experience? Maybe a takeaway that you would want them to know about in your own personal experience that they can avoid going forward for themselves?
My experience has led me through a spiritual journey that has been in many different directions. You know, I've learned so much about spirituality after leaving this organization and not being tied to just the Christian faith anymore. You know, I'm still Christian based, but I started studying like other religions, and I started studying just faith in general. And I had to learn to embrace uncertainty. I had to learn to just kind of just go with the flow of things. But what I would like to tell people is, don't be a person defined by trauma. You know, don't be a representative of trauma. You know, we carry such a heavy load, a heavy history on our backs from this organization that it is crippling to have this on you at all times, you know, constantly just, you know, subconsciously referring to it, and it affecting the way that you function. Let this go. You know, we can move on. There's so many things that we're capable of. Once you get out of this organization, we have such potential. And now we have the ability to unlock that and do what we want to do and be as productive as we want to be. And I want to tell people that they have that. They can do that now.
And my takeaway was just, I went into this organization looking for direction, looking for God. And through all of the experiences I've had with talking to elders and people in positions of authority, even when I went to Bethel and they, as visitors, they, you see one of the governing body, and the first thing is like, oh, don't look at them. And I'm like, okay, so I'm guessing that at this point, we're not worshiping God, we're worshiping people. And so now it's like, these are people telling me what to do with my life. And I was okay with that. But now I want to make my own decisions. I don't want people making my decisions. And while I'm looking for God, I want to know that I'm making decisions, from that standpoint, where that's where I originally went looking for. And I just don't like the fact that your voice gets taken away, whether you want it to or not. You still have to be able to have your voice, to find it, to be your own person, and not let people dictate to me or to anybody how their life should be lived.
Yep, there is life out the watchtower.
And I want to mention too, like leaving out this organization, one of the hardest things for me to do was trying to, as soon as I got out, I was trying to figure out who's right, who's got it right. You know, is it this religion? Is it that religion? I went to churches, you know, I started studying Buddhism, Taoism, you know, all of this. I'm like, who's got it right? And I've learned from that none of us might have this right, actually. You know, none of us might know what this is. And I've actually found some fulfillment in the journey itself, in searching for spirituality. And that's actually been more fulfilling than trying to just determine who has it right. And I know as Jehovah's Witnesses, we feel like when we come out, we need to know, because we need to figure out where to direct our purpose. But I don't think that's necessary.
Yeah, I agree. I firmly believe that you got to come to grips with you're not going to get an answer to every question. And if you spend your life chasing answers to all of life's issues and questions, you'll frustrate yourself. And so I think it's very important that people understand, as you said, you want to be comfortable with understanding you won't always have an answer for everything. And that's okay. That's okay.
And you know what I find too, based on what he was saying, is the fact that Watchtower gave us a blueprint that there's a true religion.
Yeah.
And so everybody, when they wake up and realize this is not the truth, they're taking that blueprint to these other churches. And they're saying, is this the truth? No, they got that wrong. They don't get that right. They don't got enough check boxes over here. And they move on.
Yeah. That's what I did. I think I went to 5 different churches. I found some amazing churches, you know, and by the way, some of these churches, you get to these churches and it's like, you think Jehovah's Witnesses, we're doing some of the best stuff. I went to a church that spent like $20,000 in one day and just gave it all away. Food. They just did a food drive.
Oh yeah.
You know, and then they went out, and you know, we do street witnessing, you know, we're giving people the tracts and stuff. These people went out to a gas station and started filling people's gas tanks up. And I'm like, oh, they really one up the witnesses right here, because I wouldn't listen to anything the witnesses had to say. These people filled my gas tank up. What is it that God has for me today that I can listen to? You know, but I mean, just saying, a lot of these churches, they actually put more interest in people than Jehovah's Witnesses did. You know, and there's so many out here. You know, it's just there's way better religions out here than Jehovah's Witnesses, obviously.
You know what? It's interesting that you said that, because the Jehovah's Witnesses are trying to tell people to look for a future day to get what they need. Yeah. And then other churches are saying these people need this right now.
Exactly.
And you can't live 150 years waiting to get a piece of bread, because, you know, this is how long this religion has been out here, over 100 years now. So it's like, I got to wait 150 years to get a piece of bread, or somebody to fill up my tank and my gas. Absolutely. You know? And so it's like critical thinking, making you think about what it is you're getting in return for the services, or the things that you got to do, all the hoops that you got to jump through to be a Jehovah's Witness, and you're still not feeling like your cup is getting full, you know? Absolutely. So, okay, so Everett and Shardinea, we want to thank you all for being on the program. This has been Lady C.
And this has been JT.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
You are so welcome.
All right, y'all guys. Take care of yourselves.
You too as well.
This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.
Hey, this is Lady C. Thank you for tuning in to The Critical Thought. We appreciate having you in our audience. Not only that, but we invite you to subscribe to our channel, and be sure to hit that bell so that you can receive notifications when we upload new content. Be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and give us a thumbs up if you like this video. Thank you for being in our audience.